Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to the show. This is part 2 of the discussion that I'm having with Damien, aka Sleepy Reader 666 from YouTube, about the wonderful series Danger Club. This episode covers issues 3 and 4, where we covered issues 1 and 2 in the previous episode. So let's get right to it. Okay, shall we move on to number 3?
Yeah, I guess just the thing
done.
interesting, the two issues, the second issue starts with the really disturbing violence, and the rest of it is more what you're used to in a comic book.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that.
First issue goes the other way around. So it's kind of interesting in these two issues. And then bam, the cover of the third issue is of dead bodies of, I think, all the characters that we've seen before, or at least or maybe there are other characters, but anyway, just a pile of dead superhero bodies.
And look how dark it is too.
Right. It's like they're down in a pit or something. Corpses.
But even the colors are so muted and dark. You know, lots of dark purples and blues, and very different from cover number 2. That's for sure.
Right. So yeah, the contrast is very noticeable.
Yeah. Okay. So issue number 3. Let's see. So this is a little more stuff going on here. So the character, we find out that the character in the center, facing us on the cover here, his name is Moonlight. So Moonlight confides in the American spirit, and I think this is where we actually find out that's his name. The president of the global United States that we saw in the previous issue, about what Kid Vigilante, almost said Victory for some reason, did to Apollo. Actually had it recorded on his phone or something. Jack Ladybug, Gravity Girl, Robot 9, and others go to the Empire of Crimes, HQ, and are affected by one of the members of that crime group, Jabberwock, by his illusion machine. Kid Vigilante and Magician go find Apollo recovering in Greece. So he's not dead, but then end up taking some of Apollo's blood. Moonlight finds out American Spirit's secret, and I won't go any further than that until we get to it.
They don't just take Apollo's blood, by the way. They beat the crap out of him again. They just don't show it this time. It's off screen.
Yeah. Which was kind of nice, so we don't get that repetitive thing going on here. But
yeah, they don't just always go for the violence. They can put it off screen when needed. The opening sequence again with the golden or silver age kind of look kind of echoes more directly what's going on in the story, where it says, I mean, it's not the Empire of Crime, but it says the Empire of Crime has defeated our mentors and there's nothing we can do to save them, which is the situation now.
Exactly.
Although one assumes in this old story there is a way for them to save them, and they do save them at the end of the story,
right.
as classically happens in those kinds of comics. And we get the Danger Club Reserves, which is kind of a throwback to the the Legion of Superheroes. What are they called?
The Substitute Heroes.
Legion of Superheroes.
Exactly. I had that in my notes too. It's like, yes, Substitute Heroes gets a callback in a way. And
they look even younger. And we see their name, which helps us because Gravity Girl and Moonlight are important in this issue.
Although so we have the other two are Zoom Zooms. What a Silver Age name, right? And the Weird.
Right.
And I love that picture of the Weird with the way his hands are kind of going, look, I'm weird.
Right, and they all look so happy, like, we can't wait to get our chance to
exactly right. Especially Gravity Girl, she's like, yes, let's go. I love this. I love it.
This is gonna be so cool.
Do you want to read that frontispiece text again?
Sure. Things fell apart quickly. The fear, the panic, the riots. There was no polite force that could no police force
or polite force, either
wave of chaos and terror that had gripped the world. The heroes were gone, leaving us behind. We had trained our entire lives to fight. But where was the enemy? Danger Club.
Yeah. So here we do get a little bit of back history here. with the police being unable to quell the fear and the destruction. In the previous issue, when Kid Vigilante takes Ladybug to the mansion, the HQ, he does mention something about the rioting and whatnot, and they even got to his place, his father's place, and broke it, broke things and broke in and all that stuff. So anyway, so the story opens after that first page. This is Moonlight talking with the American Spirit, telling him stuff. Like I said,
and
meanwhile,
they're in the Oval Office, I guess.
Yeah, one presumes anyway.
We weren't sure that he was president. Now we're quite sure.
Yeah.
Although he seemed like he was president in the last issue anyway.
Or very presidential anyway.
Right. And of course now we've seen what happened in the last issue, so we're pretty nervous for Kid Moonlight anyway.
Yes. And then the next page is the group going after the Empire of Crime. I wasn't sure exactly why they were doing that, other than so the only thing they say is most of the Empire of Crime went into space with the heroes. The ones that are left, and Jack, this is Ladybug talking, and then Jack says, are useless, gimmicky nut jobs. We can get them to help, is what Ladybug says. So it's a very tenuous situation here that they're going into. They're going after their enemies to implore them to help, I guess.
Right. But we've learned that the other enemies did go and help the superheroes. Whatever the threat was so great that everyone stopped being good or bad and all went into outer space to fight somebody.
Which is a common trope in superhero comics, right? So we'll put our differences aside and work together for the greater good until such time as that we can betray you and double cross and get take advantage of the situation.
Yeah, Dr. Doom frequently seems to fight alongside the Fantastic Four, for instance.
Exactly. Yeah.
But when they said "and useless gimmicky nut jobs," I was kind of thinking maybe some of you guys are the useless gimmicky nut jobs too.
Yeah, maybe it's these. Right now, we don't know for sure, but maybe it's these three characters here, and on the page. The middle one ends up being Gravity Girl, but then the other two, the one in blue and the one in reddish costume, we don't know who they are. But yeah.
And then the one with the odd symbol on her chest, kind of perhaps unfortunately placed. I know she reoccurs, but I never caught her name.
Which one are you referring to, Damien?
Actually, she's the one who talks and says, Kid Vigilante trusts me.
Oh, yeah, that's Ladybug.
Oh, that's Ladybug. Okay. Yeah. I missed that.
Oh, I see. Okay. I see what you're referring to.
Context. She's an ex-villain herself.
Yes.
So it's probably her idea to recruit more ex-villains.
Yes, so that makes sense.
Right on their side.
But it's like they must be desperate to do this, but Jack definitely doesn't like the situation. He makes that perfectly clear. And not only that, but he says, I'm not Kid Vigilante, meaning that he does not trust her.
Right.
And I think also knowing what we know coming down the pike, there may be a reason why he doesn't want to recruit even more people into this cause.
Right.
I think I may have just spoiled something with that reveal.
And he says, let's go remind these assholes who's in charge. That one stuck out to me just because, it reinforced what I'm already feeling of superheroes who are kind of thuggish.
Yeah.
It's part of it is about enjoying beating up the bad guys, not just about making the world safe. Which only makes sense. And we get a lot of that in Watchmen and stuff, but it's still more disturbing to me when coming from a teenage kid.
Well, okay.
It also fits being a teenager. But
I was going to say, though, if you look at, now it's not quite as overt as this, but if you look at Robin's early adventures when he's fighting the bad guys with Batman, he's throwing out the punny quips and one-liners and just he's having fun beating up these bad guys, but he's having fun doing it. So there's that connection going as far back as when Robin first appeared.
Well, the whole morality changed in the Silver Age, and even though I didn't really read much in the Silver Age, but I got it that as the base level comic book morality, but the morality in the 40s was quite different. Was superheroes killed people a lot.
Well, that's true.
And
well, until Robin appeared. When Robin appeared, things turned around dramatically.
when Batman stopped killing.
Yeah. So there you go. There's another reason I love sidekicks. They changed the course of comic book superhero comic books. Not always for the better, but definitely changed the course. So
they cleaned things up.
They had a great impact.
But here that impact's being reversed.
The characters bust into this building. I like this page here, Damien, where we're shown the interior of this place, and they've got the pictures of the villains themselves hung up on the wall. It was very, again, it reminded me of the new Teen Titans, when they're in Titan's Tower and they've got those full body portraits of themselves in their own tower, which, when I was younger, it's like, oh, that's really cool. They got these pictures hung up but as I got older and I look back on that, I'm like, wow, what the heck? Why are you so interested in seeing yourselves in your own HQ?
Right.
So again, it's just one of those throwbacks to previous comics.
It looks like there's even a statue of somebody.
Oh, you're right. There is.
But there's nobody there, apparently.
Then we go to Greece and we see Apollo in the middle of this glowing ball. And so that's where I said earlier, he's recuperating. You can see him. He's not bleeding. He looks like he's physically recovered. He sort of looks like he's sleeping in that. And then we see Kid Vigilante put on the moon metal knuckles again and start heading towards him.
And he says it's his regeneration which makes him useful to us.
Yes.
So now we see that it wasn't just a vicious desire to not only defeat him but kill him. There was a more to the plan, that his regeneration was part of the plan.
Yes.
They had to kill him to get him to regenerate,
or
seemingly kill him. And that's a beautifully illustrated page. I particularly like that page.
Again, yeah, the colors, you get to see that, like I said, it's this glowing yellow ball, but everything else around it is this white. So you get that sense of light going on with that panel that we're looking at on the video. So excellent coloring again. The following page, Moonlight's talking with the American Spirit. I think the only thing about this that's interesting is Moonlight says, I don't know. Oh, wait, so let me back up. American Spirit says, and after your little friends, did they choose to follow this proclaimed savior? Referring to Kid Vigilante, and Moonlight says, I don't know. I could try to find out. And he says, American Spirit says, no need. You see, I already know what will happen.
Right.
And now we're back to that sort of, not completely, but sort of a back and forth by page storytelling technique. Right. Let's see here. So the characters in the Empire of what they say? Evil? Is it evil? I'm getting confused here.
Empire of Crime, was it?
Crime. Thank you. Crime. I don't know why I keep thinking it's evil. They remark about hearing this buzzing. One of the characters says marbles. Oh, referring to the character. So Ladybug goes up to this character who's bleeding, looks like he's dying on the floor, and that's Marbles. And so that must be Marbles playing in Vigilante's cave that we saw earlier.
Oh, you're right. The same.
Or maybe Marbles' mentor, if this is a sidekick. I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense, though. But a villain named Marbles does sound like a gimmicky super villain. Maybe doesn't have much impressive powers going on.
Yeah, it reminded me of like Calendar Man, Batman's Calendar Man, or basically any Batman villain.
Now here she asks her what happened, and he says it was them, but I can't tell what he's pointing at. Is he pointing at the superheroes?
Yeah, I had the same reaction.
Superheroes?
I had the same reaction. I wasn't sure because if you follow the course of his, the way his finger is pointing, it looks like he's pointing at the painting, but the heroes are standing there in the foreground. So I'm not entirely sure. At that point, I wasn't entirely sure.
One where the colorist kind of let us down, because if the coloring had been different, it might have indicated what he's actually pointing at.
What the focus is, yeah, perhaps.
I mean, that's being very picky, but
yeah.
In any case, that's why I can't figure out. And I don't know if it's very significant, really.
Well, in the next scene, or not the next page, but the page following, we do find out what he's pointing at, or what he's referring to, which is the heroes, because then Ladybug attacks Jack Fearless.
Right.
But at the same time, you see that same painting on the wall,
right,
which ends up being Jabberwock, and the eyes are glowing. So again, I was still a little confused, but it seems that they're under some sort of influence here. But I want to back up to the previous page where Moonlight's talking to American Spirit. He says, American Spirit says, "I've been given a rare gift. I'm old, far older than you'd think, but I remember. And I remember everything that has ever happened, everything that has no longer happened. Everything." What do you think of that?
Well, I can't recall what I thought before I knew what was coming later, because it's been 3 years. But it's really, with hindsight, I think I must have just thought that he had some kind of evil control over the world, but I didn't. I mean, the second time I read it, of course, I knew exactly what he was talking about.
Right. But it was a curious thing that stuck out to me both times I read it. It's like, what does that mean? Everything that has no longer happened. So I was wondering, first of all, how long lived is this guy? What guises has he taken on over those years? And is this just another in a long list? Is he basically the Vandal Savage of this universe?
Right.
And again, we get that close-up of his mouth with the missing tooth, and you got saliva there. There's another missing tooth that we didn't see before. It's just like, really. So we talk about how visceral this book is. You get that even with things that aren't ultra-violent. You get the panels of these characters and their mouths, and it's just kind of icky. It's kind of gross.
It just popped into my head, but since we're playing with young teenagers as our heroes, then their antagonist is the most gruesomely old person you can imagine.
Right. Good point. I hadn't made that connection.
And the feeling when you're a teenager that there's no connection between you and old age. You think you're too good of a person to ever become like that, just on a physical level, right? When you're a teenager, you think somehow the old people deserve their fate, or at least that's how I remember. They sort of somehow allowed themselves to become these hideous old creatures.
And there's that old, remember in the 60s, there was that old "don't trust anyone over 30" type thing when you were younger. Right. So, and this guy is obviously older than 30.
Right. And you should not trust him.
Even more so because he's so old. Yeah. So again, we talked about this already, but back to the Empire of Crimes place. I just want to point out, Gravity Girl says she's looking off into the distance and saying, "Mom, what happened to you?" We don't see exactly what she's seeing yet, but like I said, we see the painting of what turns out to be Jabberwock. His eyes are glowing. The next page was really chilling when I got to this. You see that this character with these almost, I want to say, insect-like or maybe reptilian-like hands, because the fingers are really long,
right,
and kind of pointy.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really odd. And then you get that close-up of again, there's the mouth, the close-up of the mouth.
Right. Hideous teeth.
Yeah, you see the monitor. So this guy is watching what's going on. He's enjoying it. He's got this big smile on his face, or so we think.
Be interesting to know if Eric Jones has a particular fear of going to the dentist, perhaps.
Oh my God! You just gave me the tweet for this. Does Eric Jones fear dentists? Tune in. So we get more of this one character. I don't know the name of the character. Monsters, all of you hiding under the skin. I should never have trusted you. Starting to that one character is gonna attack Robot 9. Jack, because of his cybernetic qualities, he removes the eye patch. This is the first time you see this, and underneath his eye patch is this cyborg eye. Is what I thought of it.
Yeah, I thought of it that way too.
He's looking around. You see it from his viewpoint on this bottom panel. All the reddish looking quality.
Looks like he has infrared vision, so he can see heat, which means he can see through walls if there's warm behind the wall.
And we only see the characters that went in with him. There's no one else there.
Right.
Back to Vigilante and the Magician and Apollo. We see Vigilante extracting Apollo's blood after he's been beaten again by Vigilante. Like you mentioned before, thankfully we don't get to see that scene repeated.
Right.
But again, Apollo is bloodied and bruised and bleeding. Vigilante gives the syringe to Magician, and he goes off.
And tellingly, Magician says, "Remember how it used to be? Beat the bad guys, they get put in jail, and the city holds a parade for us."
To which Vigilante responds, "We're saving the world," reiterating, the sense, the impending doom that they have to conquer here. So, in other words, I took that to mean the ends justifies the means to Vigilante.
And Magician is the part of me, feels like the part of me that likes those opening Silver Age pages.
Yeah. He definitely comes across as the perhaps not the most, but one of the more innocent characters here. Right. I mean, despite the fact that he does engage in battle with characters, I don't recall. I'd have to go back and look, but I don't recall seeing when he's attacking people that he's necessarily brutal to anyone. Like we've seen Kid Vigilante and Jack Fearless for that matter. Right. But as we'll find out, he's not the most innocent one, and that takes a bad turn for that character. Again, back to the scene with American Spirit. So he says, "It's a little secret just between us, you understand?" Talking about the heroes that their mentors that have been out in space and haven't returned yet. They're not lost in space. They weren't killed by the cosmic being descending upon us. They're here, right where they have been for months. And he gets American Spirit, who gets closer and closer to Moonlight, grabs the back of his head, and is looking particularly vicious here in the panel.
Again, his teeth are at the center of the image.
Oh God, yeah. And he whispers in Moonlight's ear, right where they've been since the day I killed them. Whoa! What a reveal. Although you maybe could have guessed something was up with this character just based on the way he had been shown previously. Right. In the meantime, we're getting that.
Can I pause there and just say, for me, this was a flipping moment because I believed that they were trying to gather forces to fight some alien invasion in outer space. And now I realize that's not what's happening at all. There is no alien invasion in outer space. The big bad that I was thinking was looming over everything is something completely different.
And much closer to home, yeah. Right. Yeah, so the story is that we thought we were getting is totally inverted now. Everything is topsy-turvy. And we're going off into a new direction, slightly new direction at least, yeah. But at the same time, I love the thematic juxtaposition of what Moonlight is experiencing here with American Spirit and the increasing focus on Gravity Girl. There's 3 panels here. One is where it's completely white and she's on her knees saying mom, and there's this character in front of her, presumably her mom, but it's all white. And then we get back to reality, and there's the battle going on around her. She's screaming at her mother, "Why won't you say something?" And at the very bottom, it's, "Why did you leave me?" And she's got tears coming down her face. Just that that scene just broke my heart. As much as the scene with American Spirit and Moonlight unnerved me, that scene with Gravity Girl is just like, oh man. So you get these two gut punches on the same page.
Right. So
very effective. The next scene is Jack Fearless. He's had enough with his cybernetic arm. He slams his fist down, causing, I guess, the fight to stop in some way. It's not really shown.
Yeah, or maybe his punch actually brings down the ceiling. I guess not, just a beam.
Yeah, it looks like, there's some destruction there, but this is one of the few times I think that what we're shown could have been done a little better so that we understand the scene a little more.
Yeah.
At least what's going on in the scene.
Well, I think it was just so cool to show him hitting the ground like that.
It's a wonder.
Yeah. Even though it wasn't clear what the other characters how the other characters were affected by his actions.
Yeah. But definitely a cool singular image, but still, from a storytelling standpoint, I felt it was a little weak. Jack blasts the picture of Jabberwock, goes through the wall, and then finds Jabberwock there. And here's another nice reveal. This issue is just full of them. Here's Jabberwock, and his throat is slit.
Right.
So
he's
his dead.
Power works even when he's dead.
Well, he does. Jack does say something later about he had an automated death trap, some crazy mind stuff when he's talking to Kid Vigilante. But
I had assumed the American Spirit left his body there and hooked up a camera to go through the painting. But yeah, who knows?
Well, that's a good point. Yeah. Why wouldn't he?
Right.
Although
use the corpse that still has the power in it to make a trap for anybody coming to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's not important whether or not he's the one who did it, but that was just my personal interpretation.
So Jack destroys the machine. Everything stops. In the meantime, Moonlight is backing away from American Spirit, going, "Oh God, why?" And then we get a lot of things. So we got that. We go back to Jack. He's talking to Kid Vigilante, explaining the situation. Kid Vigilante is there. Apollo is whispering, "It doesn't matter how many times you kill me." Jack says, "Who did this to them?" Meaning the dead supervillains.
Right.
So we just get these quick cuts. As we get closer to the end of this issue, we start getting more and more of these quick cuts of these various scenes going on, increasing the pace and the intensity of the situation here. And as to answer Moonlight's question about why, American Spirit says, "Because I want to live forever, and very soon I shall."
Right, but since that was an intercut with "who did this to them," I assume that he did it to them. Yeah,
I took that as well. That seems fairly clear that American Spirit definitely is behind this. Although, of course, Kid Vigilante may be in the dark, but he says, "I have some theories," answering the question, even though it's already been answered for us to some degree. And then basically, so here we get the final gut punch of the book, of this issue. Gravity Girl is still on the floor crying. Jack says, "Hey, it's cool. It was illusions, mind control stuff, You're all right." And refers to her by name, Cindy. So he knows this girl more than just through her superhero moniker. At the same time, we're getting the juxtaposition with Moonlight, and he says, "No, I'm sorry, please." And he's screaming up at American Spirit, and you can see in those scenes everything's going wider and wider, or lighter in any case. So what the heck's going on there?
Right.
And then you turn the page. Sorry. At the very bottom of that page, Gravity Girl starts to stand up. Her hands are glowing, and she says, "It's too much, Jack." And the final page is the two panels showing Moonlight getting even lighter, and you can see his face. It's like his. I'm not quite sure how to take that, Damien.
His life force is being sucked out.
Possibly, yeah, because it does look like he's getting thinner in his face, right? So that makes
the what's his name? I suddenly forgot the name of the old guy.
American Spirit.
American Spirit saying, because I want to live forever. So my first thought is like an energy vampire type of situation, but it may be something else.
Right. And then, but more importantly to me, at least, is this scene where Gravity Girl's like, everything that's happened, and then, oh God, this breaks my heart. This scene, this panel here with Gravity Girl, I miss my mom, and then splat.
And it's good to point out, I think, that Gravity Girl looks extremely young. Yes. She really does, again, look 11 or 10. Even.
I was going to say, 10 or 11 tops. Imagine. So my granddaughter is 11 years old, and I can't imagine her handling the situation as Gravity Girl has done so far.
Right.
I mean, just granted, it's superhero fiction, so we kind of take for granted the conceits that these characters are emotionally able to handle this kind of stuff. Right. So it was nice to see that, to show that how young this character is and how she's unable to process. It's horrible that she kills herself, but it does really lay the foundation for just how awful things are and how they affect these kids. They're kids. We cannot forget that these are kids.
Well, and it's at this point where, the little dim switch in my brain flipped, and I thought, is on some level, is this book about child abuse, or if not that, children in wartime?
Good.
And the pressures of wartime on children. And war is obviously awful for anybody, but
well, and there has been over the years, I've seen various people talk about, putting a more realistic spin on teenage sidekicks in superhero comics. It's like if Batman and Robin were in the real world, the authorities would be on him for child abuse. In no time. I'm sure that they've commented on this in various stories over the years as well. I think he may have even done that in the All-Star Batman and Robin from Frank Miller many years ago. Right. It was something directly referenced in that story.
And with Damian, I mean, he's kind of an abused child, but not abused by Batman, but by Talia al Ghul.
Damian Wayne.
Damian Robin. Damian Wayne. Yeah.
Not you.
Not me, yeah. I by Talia al Ghul that I can remember. I may have blanked the experience out.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah, I feel like we're seeing one child being consumed by a grotesque aged man who wants to live forever, and the other child commits suicide because she can't deal with whatever it is, her memories of her mom.
Right.
Brought on by this adventure that they're having. So it's really tough stuff. Really got a lot of gut punches.
Yeah. Just this issue, I think had the most emotionally battering situations out of all the issues that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
I did have a final comment about this issue that kind of confounded me. So if the American Spirit needed to kill the heroes, I'm assuming he did this. He did to the mentors, the adult heroes, what he did to Moonlight. Why didn't he also gather all of the sidekicks in a similar fashion to take them out? It seems like a plot hole of some sort.
That's true. Maybe it's a mistake he made, or maybe, I don't know.
Or maybe he thought he had enough power, but he didn't, it turns out, or yeah.
Maybe he didn't think that they could affect his plans, so he just focused on taking down the powerhouses. I don't really know. That does seem like a possible plot hole, but if you think about it, most plots couldn't exist without some kind of hole in the logic that allows the plot to happen.
Well, are definitely conceits that we just accept and move on. Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on? Do you have any final thoughts about the issue, or shall we move on to?
I think that was my final thought about the child abuse in terms of that issue, and then The next issue, I think when I picked it up off the stands, I kind of dreaded it at this point.
And why is that?
Well, we see this gruesome cover, and we've already been through all this stuff. And that then reminds you that 2 issues ago, we actually saw this character killed.
Right. So what we're seeing on that cover is Kid Vigilante, a close-up of Kid Vigilante's face. And so I'm doing this for
Sorry, I was not thinking about the audio.
The audio audience. And it's bloody. He's bloody. He's bleeding from his mouth, from another eye, the other eye this time. But he's bleeding from all these places. His nose is kind of crunched up. You notice that on the bridge of his nose, it's kind of kind of like it's squished up or something. Yeah. His lips are swollen. Yeah, right. It's gruesome. It is gruesome, and you're right.
Swelling around his eyes through his mask.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, we are reminded. Oh wait, this character got shot in the head. What's going to happen?
And that's not simple stylized blood. It's blood is messy and gets everywhere, kind of.
Yeah, right. So again, that visceral quality. I just I imagine, God, how icky and sticky and yeah. I'm not a guy that like faints at the sight of blood or anything. I don't mind getting my blood drawn, but this bothered me.
Yeah.
All right. Did you want to go ahead and read that frontispiece again?
Oh, sure. For decades, our world had been under the rule of one man, an absent leader who had long since abandoned his responsibilities to his people. It is said that he had once been a champion of justice, his legend and inspiration for generations of heroes to come. So that's kind of a fill-in on this character we already have learned about, but don't know. The very heroes who would step forward to protect the world in his absence. But does that sentence track? His legend and inspiration for generations of heroes to come. I see. The very hero. So the guy who became president but then really didn't do very much was the inspiration for the next generation of heroes, who were the adult heroes, who are now missing. The very heroes who would step forward to protect the world in his absence. The heroes were gone, and our president could no longer be trusted. Danger Club.
So did you take that to mean, so the very heroes who would step forward to protect the world in his absence? So is this a direct reference to, like, Captain America gone missing in World War II and he was frozen in the ice for so many years before the Avengers found him? Do you think are they really going to that degree in that explanation?
I don't know, because they kind of make it seem like he's become the immortal president of the world who just sits back and doesn't police the world. And so superheroes who are originally inspired by him are now the people who police the world. That's my interpretation.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird circular logic type thing. Maybe that's not the best way to put it. But that first, or the paragraph before the one I just read, is so he's an inspiration. Oh no, the 2 paragraphs. So yeah, so we go from one time period forward in time, backwards more in time in the 3rd paragraph. So it is kind of weird, that construction. It is kind of confusing. But anyway,
it seems a little more than they need to make him to be this absent leader. Or they could just say he's been president for the last 8 years or something, and I think the story would still be valid.
Yeah. Anyway. So we get, again, this will be the final Silver Age-ish page of the issue, or for the issues we're talking about. And we get kind of like this, I don't know, it harkens back to not romance comics, but maybe comics more geared towards girls back in the day.
Yeah, unfortunately, they tended to show girls crying on the covers.
Yes, exactly. I mean, usually it had to do more with with a boy.
He doesn't know I love him, and she's crying in the foreground. But in this case, it's Daddy will always love her more.
Yes.
Because she has superpowers. So I think it is a cross-pollination between the romance trope and the sidekick trope.
And obviously there's a connection here between the 2 characters that were shown, the Wonder Wizard with the guy with the top hat, and then the sister, which is Samantha. They have red eyes. And so does Magician when he uses his powers.
Now, it's a bit confusing. Is Samantha Magician's mother? Or what's their relationship here to Magician?
The girls or Magician? Which one are you talking about?
Well, So we have the boy sidekick magician who's been a regular character with us, right?
Right.
But here we have Wonder Wizard and Samantha Sorceress. So there's no sign of magician, but they seem to be similar to magician, and they also seem to be African American, which magician seems to be.
Right.
So
I see where you're going.
Yeah. That's supposed to be a connection to magician, but I couldn't figure that one out.
Right. But we do get that in this issue. That is cleared up. But however, with this particular with this panel, it is unclear. I had the same thought. I was like, well, where does magician fit into this hierarchy here, this relationship? And then down below we get American Spirit in his youth and his fighting fitness there, set during World War II, because he's over in Japan, because you got the rising sun in the background there.
Right.
And he's like, how's it going in Berlin, Jackie? And Jackie's there with a ticking time bomb. Not so good, Spirit. So when I first read this, I'm like, is that Jack's father or grandfather? That was my first thought.
Yeah. And I can't remember whether this issue reveals the actual case or if that comes later.
Yeah, I don't remember either. So I guess we'll find out. I in one of the articles I read that I'm going to come back to, it very clearly reveals this situation. And again, I'm glad I did not encounter that article before I read these issues. Right. Oh, I forgot to do the synopsis real quick. There's really not much that goes on plot wise in this issue, but this is what I interpreted it as. So magician injects himself with Apollo's blood and goes into this other space. We'll talk about the particulars of that. Meanwhile, American Spirit attacks Kid Vigilante's team, bringing us back to where issue number 2 started. So I didn't want to go into a lot of detail with that one.
Right.
So this issue opens up with magician. It looks like he's on a pier. Yeah, he's on a dock out here going out in the ocean. He's talking on his phone, leaving a message for his mother. And then the rest of the narration in the boxes, the narration boxes that we see throughout the rest of this issue involving magician, is that message played fully.
Right.
Overlaid by the events leading up to the ending. So he injects himself with it. And here's I got to find my notes for this. Yeah, here they are. So this is the first time that we encounter magician saying a magic word. And the magic word, well, I assume what is a magic word, and it is, and I'm probably mispronouncing it because the word is based on Greek. Apokatastasis is what I want to call it.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't know. I didn't even attempt to pronounce it in my mind when I saw it.
Well, I had a hard time with it. I even looked up the pronunciation guide for that word, and that's probably the closest approximation that I can make to it. So if anybody knows if it's how it's actually supposed to be,
and it's a real
let us know. Word. It's based in Greek, yeah. Let me come back to that in a second. But as soon as he says that, you get this splash page of the magician here. And this energy or fire, well, it's kind of everything. There's energy, and looks kind of smoky, and there's kind of electricity coming out of his fingertips. So this energy surge is coming out of him in some sense. Okay, so let's go back to the magic word. So apokatastasis, which when I first read this series, I didn't even bother trying to figure out what that meant, but it plays such a big role later on in the second half that I wanted to find out what this means. So, like I said, it's Greek, and it means reconstitution, restitution, or restoration to the original or primordial condition. That's one of the definitions. So that plays an important role coming up. The next couple of pages, we get Kid Vigilante is now back with Jack Fearless, getting the band back together. They're talking about what just happened. Fearless is saying he looks really defeated in here on this panel. You know, he's slumped over, his jacket's off.
Right.
You look at his jacket, and it's all bloodied.
Right.
So he's I take this to mean he's reacting to what he just witnessed, especially with Gravity Girl.
Gravity Girl.
You act like you know everything, but you don't. This is Jack talking to Kid Vigilante. The heroes might have died driving the thing back. They might still be fighting. You tell us we're screwed and everyone listens because you're you. Say that 5 times fast. Red Vengeance's sidekick, the world's smartest teen, in quotes. And to which Vigilante responds, I have a plan. I know what's going to happen. So that's a reoccurring theme especially between Vigilante and the American Spirit, that I know these things. I know what's going to happen. I know what's happened.
But I'm at this point thinking Kid Vigilante is wrong. He doesn't know what's going to happen. And we know because we've seen his brains get blown out.
Exactly.
In the previous issue. And Jack knows that he's going to be blowing his brains out and that he's a betrayer of Kid Vigilante. And that is informing everything he says to Kid Vigilante. I was thinking while reading this.
Yes, exactly. Before we get to that reveal, though, the further conversation between the two, Vigilante says, we have one chance. That's it. Just one. I need to know, are you with me? So undercutting that betrayal. And later, so a couple pages later, they're in their jet or whatever it is. They're heading out. Vigilante says, we have, referring to all the other people that haven't showed up, all the other heroes like it from the first issue, they haven't shown up. They're staying out of our way. That's good enough. We have everyone we need. And then the next panel is showing Jack Fearless. Next 2 panels overlaid with Vigilante saying, everyone we can trust. And Jack is looking down and he looks a little wary and
guilty.
Guilty. Thank you. That I was trying to think of the right word. Worrisome, but he's looking down at this old military phone, which I think we saw in that first page, right? Yeah, because Jackie
the same phone
has the same phone. So
exact same phone.
Wow. So wait a minute, is Jack Fearless this guy from World War II? As going along in the timeline,
wearing dog tags.
Dog tags, yeah. So I thought that was interesting. Anyway, of course, we do find out I'll just reveal it. He is the same guy. It is the same guy.
But he's been frozen in time for some period of time.
Yes,
like
exactly.
And I guess Bucky.
But before that, so again, we're going back to that 2-page split storytelling technique, because we have a scene here with the magician. He's in that space. It's all reddish and purplish and yellow. We see these bubbles, these yellow bubbles, and he sees himself injecting himself with Apollo's blood. So he's seeing the past. So is he in some sort of time, outside of time space? And he touches that bubble. What's that?
I'm joking. I said, or is he just tripping?
Well, there's that.
We're seeing someone inject themselves and then have hallucinations.
The out of body experience. Like, yeah, exactly. I've heard of those. I've heard of those experiences. Don't do drugs, kids. Okay. But he touches that bubble and it just kind of bursts apart and floats away. I'm like, wait a minute, does. So if it is indeed what I'm thinking, that he is outside of time and he's seeing a past event, did he just directly affect it in some way? But he's still here, so it wasn't like he negated that event. But what does that mean? So that was my thought process as I was reading this.
Yeah, I have to say I did not really get that much out of Magician's Journey here either time I read it.
Well, and if you look,
the next time we see him, he's seeing more events that we've seen.
Exactly. So that to me, that accentuated that he's somehow outside of time and seeing these things.
See, I didn't even pick up on that. I just thought I thought it was just comic book stuff where we're showing stuff that's happened.
And this is so this page here that we're referencing is showing all these past events. So you see Kid Vigilante with the moon metal knuckles. You see him crying when we talked about him revealing his name to Ladybug. You see Insectra. You see Ladybug, him pulling that USB stick or whatever it is. Apollo there. Gravity Girl. And Yoshimi at the bottom. And then down at the corner there, you see who I presume is Red Vengeance. And I assumed is him maybe hooking up Kid Victory into that stasis tube. But it was an odd addition of that particular time bubble because we had not seen that character or that event thus far, whereas everything else on that page is something that we have seen before.
True. That is a good point.
I'm not sure if that really means anything. But it does call attention to itself.
To the very careful reader, because I don't think I was that careful. The first time. And the second time I recognized it.
That was me in the second time. I think I saw that and went, okay, he's seeing these things. Let's move on with the story. But
I think, especially in my first read, I just saw this as kind of mumbo jumbo magic stuff, and I was focused on what's happening with Kid Vigilante and Jack.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that does the stuff with Vigilante and Jack does seem more important in some fashion in this particular issue. I would agree with that. Damien, this is where we find out more of the familial relationships between Magician and the characters we saw on the first page, because this is Aunt Sam came to me. So Sam is short for Samantha.
Oh, right.
I know why you hate her, but she's your sister. So there you go. So Wonder Wizard is Magician's grandfather.
Right. And so his mother was the one who didn't have the superpowers.
Right.
Which is why he had to hide his superpowers from his mother, because she was traumatized.
Yeah. We go back to Vigilante and the group on the ship, and Ladybug's like, "Hey, what's the plan of attack? Last I heard, the guy was untouchable, meaning the American Spirit." Vigilante says, "We're not going to attack him. We don't need to. The American Spirit will be here with his army in 30 seconds. Right, Jack?" And Jack, and the panel, what you see is we see Vigilante from the backside, and in the foreground, Jack is standing up, and he's got his laser pistol or whatever it is in his hand. And then that's when American Spirit's battleship, it's like a helicarrier type thing.
Right. Straight out of Field.
Yep. He says to open fire on the ship. Jack is pointing his gun at Vigilante, says, "It's done, Andrew." And Vigilante says, "I know." And he shoots at him. "I'm coming home," he says to Skybase 1. "I'm coming home." He shoots. So that cuts away. There's a battle scene.
This was the point for me where I was quite sure that he was the sidekick of the American Spirit, that he was Jackie, the Jackie being referred to.
Yeah, I agree. That that's when I made that connection clearly then.
Right. That's when I was sure.
In the meantime, Magician is coming up to this other bubble, and when I looked at it, I tried to tell what was in that bubble, if it meant anything. So I'm looking for all these connections, and there's this kind of formless blobs, darker blobs in there. I can't. Right. I don't.
It's pretty formless. It's
I don't. So that must. I'm wondering if that meant anything, or if it was just the artist's way of showing like a particular shine to it, or I don't know, some sort of reflective thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I almost viewed it as a sunspot or something.
Yeah, exactly, something like that. But so on the second read, of course, I'm looking for things here. For particular meaning and connections, and so I don't think it really means anything. I
think he's just traveling through some magic cosmos, and they're using visually. He's traveling through these bubbles of light, which are the same color as the explosions that are taking down Kid Vigilante's Quinjet. That was the Avengers jet for years. Quinjet,
there you go,
just like it, but.
That's true. They are the same color.
So I just thought it, in part anyway, was a visual juxtaposition.
But we don't see that these spheres with Magician are explodey yet in any way.
Right. So I thought it was one looks peaceful and one looks violent, and yet the colors are the same.
Okay. That's a good juxtaposition.
And so I just thought it was an interesting artistic juxtaposition.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if they're trying to tell us anything about it.
The ship is going down. Ladybug's freaking out. We need to counterattack, evade something. And Kid Vigilante says this: it doesn't matter what we do. We're not going to win this fight. Now brace yourself for impact and listen to what I have to say. And at this point, I'm thinking, this kid is out Batmaning Batman.
Yeah, he is beyond. He's Batman's ideal self in a way, in terms of strategy guy.
Yeah.
He also has a hole in his lower shoulder, I guess you'd call it, or upper pectoral, and where he, I guess, has been shot by Jack, but we don't know where Jack is now. I don't think. So I thought, oh no, he's in outer space. I mean, he's falling through the sky fighting with Robot 9.
Yes, and then we see the hole in Vigilante's chest. Which, how can this kid function with such a gaping hole in his chest, right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean by he's out.
I wonder if he was
out
Batman. Kind of gun that wasn't even, I don't know, didn't even go all the way through or something. But anyway, he is tougher than tough.
Yeah.
And then the spaceship finally crashes on the surface of the helicarrier. Not the spaceship, but the Quinjet, or the airplane that they're flying, where Jack seems to have defeated Robot 9.
It sure looks that way, yeah. And how?
We get little flashes of Magician heading close to what looks like a sun, but probably is something else.
Yeah, I think that's the same bubble that I referred to. He just gets closer and closer to it. And of course, the visual of the bubble is, we're only seeing a tiny portion of it now, because of course we're going to get a big reveal in a minute. The fight goes on the carrier, whatever. Kid Vigilante bursts out of
another Batman kind of move.
Yeah, exactly. Right. He's fighting against everybody. He's getting shot. This goes on for 4 pages, essentially, this fight.
Yeah, we should be doing more visuals. There's that Batman move I was talking about, where he bursts through the glass window. Yeah. He takes down lots of the goons or soldiers of the Liberty guy. I keep forgetting his name. The American Spirit.
Yep. Superior numbers do win out usually in fights like this, no matter how much of a superhero you are, and you get
lots of blood.
Lots of beating, lots of blood.
He's being hit with kind of maces, I guess, kind of high-tech maces. Yeah. Which should ruin his dental work forever.
I think that's the least of his problems.
At the very bottom of the page, we see the Magician guy doing something magical to the giant sun-like thing.
And then the next page, they're defeated. They're putting Vigilante in handcuffs. And I thought this was particularly brutal. Vigilante calls out to Ladybug. And the way that it's constructed, it was kind of odd to me. But if you put the dialogue boxes together, it makes sense. But he says Ladybug, and then the soldier, just slams the butt of his rifle up against Ladybug's face. Blood spews out. She cries out no, but then Vigilante says, "Don't worry, I have a plan." Coughs up some blood, or spits out some blood, and he says, "I always have a plan." And then we get. I won't show the next thing I want to talk about, but then we get Jack coming up to Vigilante.
Knowing what we know, we think he's wrong. This seems like the end in a way.
Yeah, it does.
Thought he had a plan, but we know already he's going to get killed if we read issue 2.
Yes, exactly. And then the big reveal, that the big glowing bubble that Magician is dealing with, is all of the heroes that disappeared, gaping in fear, or screaming in fear, perhaps, at something is coming at them, and they're all frightened and terrified of whatever this thing is.
Yeah.
But
I have to
notice,
say, I didn't find that a very meaningful reveal. I didn't get much out of it. Did you?
no,
get
no,
something?
no. Other than well, no, not from a narrative standpoint. It's nice to see the heroes that they've been talking about for the last 3.5 issues, and the point that they are frightened, that their mentors, the adults in the situation, are scared to death of whatever this thing is. So what chance do these teen heroes have up against something that affected their mentors in that way? I did want to point out, so you get that reveal of how the adults are reacting, and then you get Jack's face, which his one eye is kind of wider than normal, and the look on his face is almost like surprise. Considering what is actually happening in that scene, it seemed kind of weird the way that the way his face is shown. So it almost seemed like is he somehow sensing what Magician has discovered in some way? But that doesn't make much sense. I think maybe more he's reacting to the grim determination of Vigilante's face in the panel at the top of this page,
Right.
which mirrors the cover as well.
I guess I interpreted his face as he's bracing himself to do something he doesn't really want to do, but he knows he has to.
Okay.
Or he feels he has to. But I don't. It's hard to interpret.
It was just an odd expression for what he's about to do. So then we get the next page, which is Magician using his wand to burst that bubble.
Right.
So what does that mean? Again, I wondered if he's trying to affect something in the past, because he says we still need them. The entire world needs them. So he's obviously trying to release them from something. It's not clear what exactly is going on here yet.
Right. To me, the counterpoint of his monologue, which is still his really long message to his mother on the phone, is a counterpoint to what's happening with Jack and Vigilante. You know, because he's saying, I wanted to say goodbye and we really need heroes. It seems to make it seem even more painful and more horrible that it seems like the last heroes left on Earth have just been defeated and are being killed.
Good point. I actually hadn't thought of it that way. That's a really good way to think of it. Yeah, that just makes my appreciation of these scenes even more so. That's really good. I like that thought. The next page, there's just the result. Looks like Magician is being blown backwards from the explosion, and Jack gets closer and closer to the murder he's about to commit. And the final panel on that page is just that close-up of his face. We don't see his eye.
Right.
That's telling.
It's a bit of an odd shot, in fact.
It is, but I think it makes appropriate sense. You know, he has made that decision. He's committed to this action to kill his friend. And you see the flash of his gun, and you see the blood splatter there.
And it's a counterpoint. It's the same shot from a different point of view, in a sense.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you for showing that. That looks good.
Less disturbing point of view, I guess, but a more emotional one in a way. And at the time, I interpreted that as Jack letting go of any pretense to being a hero. Now, of course, now I interpret it differently, having read later issues. But at the time I read this issue, I thought Jack is letting go of having been a hero or anything and just becoming selfish or, serving for his own survival and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
That was my interpretation before I knew some more things about the story that I didn't know when I read this.
And then finally, we get to the last page of this issue. We get the juxtaposition of the two bloodied heroes: Vigilante, who has been shot through the head, he's presumably dead, and Magician, who is bleeding from all orifices in his head,
including his eyes, which is
yeah. So is he dead as well? And
Right.
and of course, with the overlay of his message, tell Dad I love you both. I wish I could tell you all this a different way. I'm just afraid. I'm afraid of what you'll say to me. How you'll look at me. It's easier if I just leave a message. And this, again, we get another kind of gut punch. You never listen to your messages. So he's doing this knowing that most likely they will never hear it.
Right.
Or at least assuming that his parents will never hear it. So how awful is that relationship then?
Yeah. So I feel that if I remember correctly, it's going to be several more issues before we learn anything of what Magician was really up to.
Yeah.
So it was kind of just, in terms of reading this issue, it felt like just some special effects with an interesting monologue about his life. But we do learn later, I believe, what he was up to.
Yeah. Yep. Again, a final note on this issue I have in my notes here. So the issue-long message that Magician left for his mom accentuates this helplessness, this despair that he's feeling, being unable to communicate, and also by extension to succeed in the task. And this issue ends on a major downer. And of course, like I said, this is the first trade collects the first 4 issues. So this is the first arc of the story, the first half of it. And then we wouldn't get another issue, like I said, for 6 months after issue number 4. So that's kind of a long time to wait for.
And then after that issue, I think then the wait became even longer. Right?
Yes, much longer, which is interesting. Why they decided to break up the trade in that way? Why not collect issue 5 with that? I don't know. Other than it's an 8-issue series, so it makes sense to do 4 and 4. However, considering what they did with that final issue, which they did not collect into the trade, which I think is the wrong decision, but
they didn't collect it into the trade. Okay.
Yeah. I find that even more interesting. But at the same time, I can also see why they would want to get the first 4 issues out in trade form to keep, and that came out in November. So about a month after the 4th issue came out. So November 2012. So they wanted to keep the book alive in the minds of those of us who were reading it.
I assume they thought when issue 5 came out that they were going to be back on their regular schedule, and they thought the trade would help promote the series.
Possibly.
Yeah. Valiant, Image, but that did not happen. I have to say, by the time I got to the end of these 4 issues, I thought, wow, they've pretty much shot their load. You've pretty much given us so many twists and turns and unexpected stuff. I can't see how they can top this at this point.
Yeah.
That's where I was kind of left.
Wow.
Waiting for future issues.
I was thinking, what other mind-blowing reveals are they going to give us after this, after all these gut-wrenching turning points and the reveals that they've done? It's like, wow, what else is coming? And my reaction to that was, bring it on, because I want more of this.
And this will be good for people reading it in a trade, because it is so dense. I think even month to month, not to mention with delays, it's hard to connect all the dots. I see.
Oh, very true. Yeah. So in general, Damien, how do you, let's kind of answer Travis's question about that he provided on Twitter about delays and how it impacts our reading, and also whether we stick with creators that have such long breaks between issues. Now, of course, I don't know if Travis knew this. I'm sure he does, but because he is speaking to a larger issue, but in particular, as we talked about, Rusty Drake's kids got in that accident, and that's why they wanted to hold off, because Rusty Drake is such an integral part to this book. And you and I have we've made comments about how great the coloring is and how much of an impact the color is to the story itself. And let me find, I have a quote here. Let me find it. I've got too many pieces of paper that I have. Here we go. This is from Eric Jones. He says he meaning Rusty puts a huge effort into every single page. And if we brought in a pinch hitter just about anybody else's work would stand out like a sore thumb against the rest of the series. And I can totally see that. That isn't to say that there aren't other brilliant colorists out there, but Rusty's work is so unique that it would be impossible to replace him. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I think they made the right choice as a team of creators to stay true to themselves. I do think it seriously hurt this book. I bet there's a lot of people who never even knew when the next issue came out and just forgot about it. I had it on my pull and had sort of forgotten about it by the time, say, issue 6 came out. And I told myself I would go back and reread the past issues, but I don't think I did. I think I just went ahead and read it and hoped for the best. And I think it did kind of hurt my reading experience. Mm-hmm. Now we have it finished, though. You can reread your issues or read it in trade, and I think it, is worth it in the long term. But I think they probably, had this come out monthly from the beginning, this might still be going, I think, in some form.
Well, it's
more ideas for stories. It might have become an ongoing rather than a limited series.
Yeah, so it's interesting you bring that up.
Might have built up popularity as the first 2 trades came out, and then people had another issue to buy and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was really surprised when I first saw a tweet from somebody, probably Landry Walker, talking about how the 8th and final issue was completed. They just needed to do the coloring and stuff like that, or maybe he was talking about his script. It was all done, and I kind of freaked out because I tweeted back at him and said, I had no idea it was only 8 issues, because I thought it was an ongoing series. It was just taking a while to get out. So I don't know what you brought up there. Maybe if they had a better response, if they'd come out more regularly, maybe they would have continued it on. But because the episode that I released, I talked about the December 2015 advanced solicitations, and how it seemed like several books in those solicitations were suddenly the final issues of, a finite number, whereas before they were never indicated as being a limited series in any fashion, at least by numbers.
Right. So, and that's the Image strategy, which I think now other people may be following too, to not tell you when it's a limited series. However, we can't know if they planned it to be an original series or realized once it was taking 6 months per issue that they would have to make it a limited series.
Well, here's the thing. The response I got from Landry Walker when I sent that tweet, or maybe it was Eric Jones. I think maybe it was Eric Jones. I was told that it was always intended to be an 8-issue series.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't want it to be.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why I wanted to do this focus on this series, because in my own small, teeny tiny way, I want to generate some interest in it, maybe, as if I have any influence whatsoever on anything. But just get more of the message out of this, how great this book really is, and maybe down the road, because they like you mentioned before, they did talk about Landry Walker and Eric Jones in that interview, that there were possibilities of other stories. There were 2 specifically that Landry talked about how they could do. He wanted to do a focus on Yoshimi and Micro Tokyo.
Right. And I would love that.
Yeah. And he needed to try and convince, or at least coerce, Eric Jones into doing a funny animal version of this book, where you have Cat Vigilante,
Parrot or something.
Yeah, and Jack Rabbit Fearless, along those lines. I would love that too.
I guess I'm less excited for that one.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I would read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that they may just have been gone so long that I don't know if this book can, even in trade, pick back up and find an audience. But maybe it can.
Mm-hmm. At the very least, the trades are out there, the issues are out there digitally. You can probably find the back issues
right
easily enough. And if they ever wanted to come back to this, I think it'd be very easy to do so. And all Image would have to do is re-release the trades to help drum up
Right.
interest in what's coming. And it's well worth it, everybody listening or watching out there. This series is so worth it. You need to give it a shot.
And this creative team needs to do more comics, I think.
Yeah. I actually have
comics.
I actually have the trade collection of the Supergirl series that they did.
Uh-huh.
I haven't read it.
Were they the ones about her in junior high?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have read it. It's very good.
Yeah? Okay.
But I read it with a 6-year-old.
Yes. And see, I actually bought it for my 11-year-old granddaughter who likes Supergirl. And I thought it'd be a perfect thing for her to, she kind of likes comics. She's not like my 9-year-old granddaughter, Madison, who loves comics. She loves comics, but I'm trying to foster that interest in both of them. So I got her the Supergirl trade, that Supergirl Cosmic Adventures in the 8th grade, I think it was.
Right.
And so I do plan on reading that. And like I said earlier in the episode, I do plan to go find those Batman Brave and the Bold issues that Landry and Eric Jones worked on, because I had no idea they'd done that. So
is that the kids Brave and the Bold, like the version based on the comic? I mean, the cartoon?
I assume so.
Regular Brave and the Bold.
No, because I have those Brave and the Bold, the regular Brave and the Bold issues, and they're not part of that. So I assume it's based on the cartoon that was out, which was a great cartoon anyway itself. So
mentally, I'm having trouble making the leap from that Cosmic Adventures in the 8th grade to this stuff.
Oh yeah,
if I went back, I could see some connections, but at the time I thought, oh, this is fun, but I didn't even note who the creators were or anything. It's one of those things where you just kind of read it with your kid, and it was a good time. But
well, yeah, until I read this series, Danger Club, I don't know if I knew really who Landry Walker and Eric Jones were.
Right.
But they definitely are on my radar now. So anything else that they do that they want to work on, I'm all for it. Even if it's not more Danger Club.
Right.
I'm going to check it out.
Yeah. Well, and I guess we'll save our total overview thoughts for after we read the next 4 issues in the next exciting episode.
Yes. But let me ask you one more question before we depart. Oh, wait, I want 2 more things. I wanted to read the descriptions of the major characters in this interview that I referenced earlier.
Okay.
And because it does, like I said, it does spoil a few background bits for some of these characters. Or maybe do we want to do that? Yeah, I'll just do it. Let the chips fall where they may, as they say. So, Kid Vigilante. Guess what? He's a clone of his mentor, Red Vengeance. He has no powers, but is a merciless hand-to-hand combatant with a genius-level intellect. So maybe I was right. Kid Victory is a clone, but not the clone that I thought he was.
Right.
Which is, I don't know if I like that idea or not. I kind of like the idea of them being twin sons of Red Vengeance, right, and doing the whole father-son crime-fighting bit thing. Jack Fearless, the original teenage sidekick from the early 40s. Fearless was frozen in a cryogenic device after a bomb destroyed his arms, legs, and one eye. And now he's been rebuilt with cybernetic appendages. So you were right about that. The magician draws his power from the depths of interdimensional space where reality is in a state of flux. So that kind of ties into what we were talking about with him. Yoshimi Anamoto. Wait a minute, Anamoto, wasn't that the robot creator?
She's the daughter of the creator. That makes a lot of sense.
Here it is. I'm looking it up real quick. Professor Takumi Anamoto.
They're probably about to tell you that.
Yeah. The diminutive 5-inch tall, so yeah, there you go. She's 5 inches. Pilot of the stolen jumbo bot, Robot 9, is an outcast of the isolationist city-state of Micro Tokyo. Okay, that explains a little bit more about Micro Tokyo if it's isolationist. And city-state. Ladybug, we already know what they say about her. She's the sidekick to Insectra. And finally, Apollo, last of the race known as the Olympians. He's now the most powerful being on the planet. there is as Jones says, there's more than a slight nod at Jack Kirby's fourth world design wise with his character. Did you pick up on that?
No.
No, I didn't either. But then again, I'm not well versed, and we talked about this on Twitter not too long ago.
Right.
I'm not as well versed on Kirby, DC, especially DC Kirby stuff.
I am. So now I feel.
I wouldn't feel bad about that. I don't know. Maybe
Vesuvius,
Jones.
that one panel of Vesuvius seemed very Kirby-like.
Yes, I would agree with that totally.
And now I'm looking back at him. Yeah, I don't really see it, but I was kind of thinking, because I remember loving the issues of the Teen Titans where George Perez was drawing all the Olympian gods.
Oh, yeah, early on in the series?
Quite early on, they got involved in a big battle with Apollo, in fact.
Yes.
Apollo was on one of the
right.
a much more grown-up Apollo.
Right. Oh, wow.
Maybe they owe Wolfman and Perez a little bit of money.
I think they might. Yeah, these homages, these connections are a little more direct than maybe I thought at first. So, and they do talk about in one interview. I don't remember if it was the podcast that we mentioned or some other interview. I read like half a dozen things preparing for this. So I don't remember which one it was, but they did talk about how the new Teen Titans was a huge influence on them because those are the comics that they read. They're just like us. They grew up reading the new Teen Titans. They have this love for that series, those characters, the Wolfman and Perez stuff in particular. So it makes a lot of sense. Two more things. I said that already, but I thought of something else. I wanted to mention, because I had it in my notes, but I forgot to mention it as we were going through the issues. I did notice that Eric Jones's art from the first issue, like going into like the third issue, he seems a lot more comfortable with the characters and how he is presenting them. Because I'm thinking of a particular panel in issue 1 where Kid Vigilante is kind of, his look isn't as defined, I guess, as it appears in later issues. And so I just thought it was interesting because I also had that same, going back to the new Teen Titans, I also had that same reaction to how Perez portrayed those characters early on as compared to how it ended up later on in the series. Right.
I remember thinking that too when I used to. At some point, they suddenly seem more lifelike or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And then finally, I wanted to ask you, Damian, you get the $10,000 question. What do you think that Danger Club, based on these first 4 issues, is contributing to the superhero genre in general? You have 30 seconds, go. No.
Well, if the other creators are reading it, I think it might make them think about what statements they would like to make about I was going to say subtitles, sidekicks. Mm-hmm. I guess I feel like it follows in the tradition of the Alan Moore sort of both breaking things down and building them back up in different ways, and the intricacy and density of an Alan Moore type of storytelling style. Mm-hmm. So I feel that it's a very strong entry in the thread that leads out for me from Alan Moore. That's the best I can answer that question as you throw it out at the moment.
I thought it was a very good answer, actually. I along similar lines, although I wasn't making the Alan Moore connection, but just the more quote unquote realistic portrayal of teen sidekicks in a world, and that is taken almost verbatim from one of the descriptions about the series. What if superheroes were in the real world? I don't know that this series actually addresses that in a good way. I don't take this series so far as what happens if superheroes were in the real world. I mean, that's definitely more Alan Moore Watchmen territory. Mm-hmm. But it is definitely more realistic in the portrayal of the violence, and not just the violence, but the result of the violence. You know, because we've talked a lot about the blood, the buckets of blood that goes on in this series. But yeah, it was the focus on teen superheroes and what that could mean, how they could be portrayed. It's not just all hijinks with the adult superhero mentor. It's not all teen angst and, you know, soap opera-esque type storytelling, although that's part of it. I mean, these are all elements that they're playing with, but they're not focused on one particular thing. So they're taking all these tropes and past story ideas and mixing them up. It's in a way, it's very oh gosh, I'm blanking on the guy's name. Who did Naked Lunch?
Oh, William Burroughs?
Burroughs, yeah, kind of the cut up technique. And I'm making a huge leap here, I know, but taking all these things and kind of cutting them up and making these connections together and seeing how it all falls out together. I think that's the best contribution that this story so far is making, is mushing all this stuff together and seeing what comes out the other end. Ooh, that sounded grosser than I intended. There you go. Oh, final question for you. Well, no, we already answered that. I was going to ask you, do you want to see more of the Danger Club universe? I think we both said yes on that. So,
I would love if they just did a special annual that was actually a old Silver Age version of the Danger Club, like a whole issue.
Yes, I have that in my notes too. The yesteryear stories, the funny animal one we talked about, more background, the history. Yeah. You give me a whole annual, like you say, of the yesteryear stuff, and I will buy the crap out of that book. So,
and it could be full of Easter eggs, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, touching, making connections to things that we already know that's coming up, and then it becomes poignant, and
right.
I just think there's a lot of depths and layers to this that. Even more than what we've talked about could be made, and we're probably missing stuff. You know what? And so here we are. We're gonna, unless you have any final thoughts, Damien, we're gonna do the lead out here.
Yeah, all my further thoughts will be saved for the next episode.
Okay,
created in time for the next episode.
That's right. So I'm really curious what anybody who's watched the video or is listening to the audio podcast episode coming up, if you've read this series, what connections did you make? What connections did you make that we missed going through this? Because I'm sure that I missed a lot of things, because there's a lot of stuff going on in this. There's the story is just chock full. It's packed full of interesting superhero teenage goodness. That sounds kind of dirty too. I'm going to stop saying these things now and implore people to go ahead and provide feedback. And you could do so by emailing me at longboxreview@gmail.com. You can also just chat me up on Twitter at longboxreview, or leave comments at the blog, longboxreview.com. Damien, tell the fine folks out there where they can find your wonderful videos.
The channel name is Sleepy Reader 666 on YouTube. You can also follow me on Twitter as Sleepy Reader 666, where I love to chat with people. Okay,
before we go, I have to ask, Damien, can you tell us the origin story of Sleepy Reader 666? Why that particular name?
Well, as you may or may not recall, when you have young children, you often don't get to sleep much.
Oh, yes.
And my daughter's now 7, but I guess she was about 3.5 when I started the channel, and I still was not recovered from the lack of sleep. And so the name Sleepy Reader popped into my head, and then YouTube insisted on a number. And since my real name is Damien, The Omen came out. Every annoying little twerp, speaking of teenagers, would walk up to me and point to my forehead and say, "Where's the 666?" So I took that number to my bosom and decided 666 was my number.
See, you took something that someone was trying to have power over you, and you took it in and made it your own.
Exactly.
as
Some
a
people
teenage
have asked
superhero would do.
if it means I worship Satan or anything like that. I like comic books about Satan, but other than that, no.
Okay, all right. So, are you looking? We're going off on tangent now, but are you looking forward to the new Lucifer series from Vertigo? Speaking of Satan,
The TV series, no, but I love the comic book. If they're having a new comic book,
that's just it. They in the December solicitations, they are soliciting the next volume of Lucifer.
I loved the original series, so if they're bringing that back, that would be awesome.
Yeah, me too. All right.
I mean, it was. I liked it better than Sandman in some ways, which is sacrilegious.
Yeah, between you and me. Yeah, between you and me and everybody else that's listening to this, I did too. Okay. Anyway, Damien, thank you so much for joining me today. We've talked longer than I anticipated, so I apologize about that. I hope, though, that maybe you might have guessed that given the conversations that Travis and I have sometimes on here.
I did not anticipate, but it was fun.
Okay, well, I appreciate your patience with me and sticking around and pointing out all the wonderful things you did about Danger Club issues 1 through 4. And I'm really looking forward to talking with you in the near future about the back half of this story, because there are some amazing plot developments going on with with the series and how it ends, especially the 2-issue ending that they do. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation with you.
I think we may have a whole different set of comics to compare it to.
Yes. All right. That's it. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Go read some comics. Have some fun. Bye-bye.